Has anyone seen this movie, Coach Carter, by any chance? Have a show of hands. Anyone seen Coach Carter? To anyone who hasn't raised their hands, that's your homework. Go watch it. It's an incredible, incredible movie. I feel so old. I just found out it's the 20-year anniversary of this movie being out, and I couldn't believe that. But if you don't know what it's about a man who's a basketball coach, and his surname is Carter, thus the name. And he becomes the basketball coach for a high school boys team in a really, really, really sketchy part of town. It has the worst statistics for crime rate, for going on to university or the lack thereof. And he takes this job because he is a very, very good basketball player and coach from his own days. But he's there because he wants to make a difference in these men's lives. And that doesn't go down very well with the community. They just want an excuse to skip out on class and to play ball for a few hours. But he sees a bigger picture than that. And he's like, if you play basketball well enough, you can go to college. You can make a life for yourself, where most of them are going to join the family business, get involved in drug cartels, gangs. Honestly, most of them probably end up dead before the age of 30. And so this man has a bigger vision for their life. So many trials and stuff to jump through, and they get to play in this big tournament at the end, and it gets to the final game, and I won't spoil the result for you, but I do want to draw attention to a scene that happens after that match. They're chanting in the locker room their famous chant. They're from Richmond, so the coach goes, "Rich what?" And other players go, "Richmond." He goes, "Rich what?" "Richmond." And they get all amped up, and they leave the doors of the locker room into the gymnasium, and all the girlfriends and the parents and the families and all their community that's traveled with them this whole journey are there standing with signs, and they're celebrating like, "We love you, Richmond Oilers." And there's this moment where they go up and they'll hug their mum or their dad or their girlfriend, whoever it is. And when they hug them, it freeze frames. It just stops. And a caption comes up. And it'll say something like this. It'll say, "Junior Battle went on to play 4 years as point guard at this university." And it keeps playing a bit. It's another freeze frame on another player. And it goes, "Jaron Worm Willis went on to play at this university, got a degree in business and communications." And it goes on and does this flash forward of what the rest of their life is going to look like. And this is based on a true story, this movie. And it's this really inspiring note at the end of like, we've gone through all the trials with them, but we're like, but how does their life actually go? Does it end up working out? And we get this freeze frame and we see everything that's going to happen just in a sentence or two. And so if you didn't know, we are deep, deep, deep into the Joshua series. This is week 10 of 11. So if you've missed the other 9, you probably had a family member that was baptized today, so you've shown up for today. But if for some reason you've missed it, I'll do a very quick recap. If you can bring up the next slide for me. Excuse me. Is that this is where we've covered so far. All of 1 to 12 has been the other 9 weeks. So very quickly, their leader Moses dies, and God says, "Joshua, you're the man for the hour. You're the guy to replace him. Be bold and courageous. It's going to be really tough. You're going to leave everything you know that's comfortable in the wilderness, but you're going to step into the promised land, and it's going to be awesome." And so he rallies the nation. They go through a bunch of different trials. They have to cross the river, but God's there with them. The walls of Jericho come down because God's with them. A couple of tests with secret sin and a bunch of other things. And then it gets to where we are. And today we're covering the entirety of 13 to 21. So we're not doing a deep dive because you will literally be here till the next round of baptisms in a few months' time. So it's going to be just a scatter shot of all of it. But the best way that I can describe this section is like the freeze frame from Coach Carter. It's that we've traveled all this way, and then you just get the 12 different tribes and they go, boom, did they do it or not? Did they actually take the land? Did they actually settle down? Did they actually have wives and families? Did they actually do what God commanded? And it's this beautiful, beautiful section. And if there was one thought or question for you to have today, it would simply be this, and it's on the slide behind me now, is that if your life was made into a movie, what would you like your freeze frame to say? If your life was made into a movie, what would you like your freeze frame to say? I don't know about you, but that's a pretty big question, and one that's probably pretty hard to answer. And I think it takes a lifetime to actually have an answer to that question. But that's what's going on here, is that they go through all these trials. It's very dramatic and very just like intense. But it reaches a point where it's like, but did you go on to do the thing that you felt called from God to do? And I love that we've had baptisms today, because baptism really is the symbol of, no, I'm not going back anymore. Like, actually, I'm going to devote the rest of my life to taking the promised land. I'm going to devote the rest of my life for Jesus, and I'm going to make mistakes, sure. I'm going to stuff up, sure. I'm going to get mad at my spouse or at my kids or whatever that thing is. But my life is for God now. My life is for God now. I want to draw your attention to this one verse in Joshua 13. If you can pull it up behind me. This is God speaking to Joshua. And he says, I myself will drive these people out of the land ahead of the Israelites. So be sure to give this land to Israel as a special possession, just as I have commanded you. Pay attention to that word, give. And if you can jump to the next slide for me, we're 5 chapters later now. So I'm given the commandment to go and take this land. Then there's this really confusing section here, and I'll unpack it for you guys in a moment. It says, now that the land was under Israelite control, the entire community of Israel gathered at Shiloh and set up the tabernacle. But there remained 7 tribes who had not been allotted their grants of land. So it hadn't been given to them yet. And then Joshua asked them, how long are you going to wait before taking possession of the remaining land of the Lord? The God of your ancestors who has given you. There's that word again. Are you seeing the contradiction there? They haven't been allotted anything, but yet they're being rebuked in this moment of like, why haven't you taken this yet? Why haven't you taken this yet? And this word give, if you're anything like me, if you're a selfish Western individual, when I think give, I'm thinking of Christmas. I'm thinking of me sitting at the tree and all the presents should have my name on it. And I get really cut when they'll read out like my daughter's name or something. I'm like, who cares about her? I want the present. And they'll read out all these other names and they finally get to me and I'm like, yes. And I push aside everybody and I unwrap that bad boy and it's socks and undies again. And I'm devastated. Like when I'm thinking of giving, I'm thinking of that. Like God's going to give me this present. That is not how they understood this word. When they think of giving, they don't think about it like Christmas. They think about giving in terms of being assigned. In terms of being assigned something, like being assigned a task. So the best equivalent I can give, because I'm seeing blank stares, it'd be like you're at a wedding or some big event and the MC or the celebrator gets up and they're like, it is my honor and privilege to be up here with you guys today. I've only done one wedding where I was that person. It was the most stressful day of my life. My iPad overheated literally as the bride was walking down, and I had to rush off to the side, pull up an old email that I'd sent to myself off my phone, pull it up, and I'm hoping then praying that that didn't overheat. But when they came down, I said the same thing. I said, it is an honor and a privilege to be with you today. Are you with me? Like this idea of like, it's a gift from God, but it is very, very, very hard work. And so these 7 tribes, like we haven't received our allotment yet. When are you going to give us the nice little present under the tree? I've been waiting here for years now. Where is my present? And Joshua is like, no, that's not what give means. Give means it's been assigned to you. And that the promised land is given by God. We already know that. The promised land is given by God, but the promised life is taken by you. The promised land is given by God, but the promised life is taken by you, by me, by whoever. And sadly, I think there's a lot of Christians either in this church or elsewhere where we're in the promised land, like we're saved. We're going to spend an eternity with Jesus. It's going to be awesome. But we're kind of just doing these ones at the moment. We're just looking and we're waiting for the promised life to land in our lap. But according to this story in Joshua, that is not actually how this works. And actually, it's about being bold and courageous and taking initiative and almost not even asking for permission, because the permission's already been given. The best way I can describe it, it's like you go to a fancy friend's house. Like it's like an 8-bedroom mansion. The cars out the front are worth more than your whole house. And you walk in and they're like, oh, so good to see you. They give you a hug. And there's a giant spread out of foods that I can't pronounce. There's lobster, there's everything. And they go, have as much as you want, eat anything. And you go, oh my gosh, thank you so much, thank you so much. But you don't take any food because you're like, I can't take this. This is way too fancy. But your 2-year-old is going, let's go. And they run up and they just grab a huge thing and shove it in their mouth. They're like, no, don't do that, don't mess it up. But actually in this story, according to this scripture, we're actually meant to be like the child, not like the responsible adult. Because God's already given them the promised land. He's like, this is yours to take. It's yours. And we sit there and we wait and we go, God, give me a green light. I'm waiting to go. But he's like, I've already given you permission. Is this making sense? He's like, I've already given you permission. Now go and do the thing you know that I want you to do. So I'm going to be giving you guys 3 hot tips from how to take the promised land. And there's multiple stories in this 8 chapters. I'm just going to look at 3. And I think there's something in here for everyone. And the first tip, I apologize, but tip number 1 is don't be like Dan. Everyone say, don't be like Dan. If there's a Dan near you, look at that Dan. Say, don't be like Dan. I apologize. I know Britt's brother's here and his name's Dan. He's come to support his sister and I've just thrown him under the bus. Thanks for coming. But don't be like Dan. I'll explain what this means. If you can pull up the slide behind me, this is about the tribe of Dan, what they did. So it says the 7th allotment of land went to the clans of the tribe of Dan. The land allocated as their homeland included the following unpronounceable towns, which I will not go through. We'll skip to the next paragraph. It says, but the tribe of Dan had trouble taking possession of their land. So they attacked the town of Laish. They captured it, slaughtered its people, and settled there. Then they renamed the town Dan after their ancestor. There is so much in that you can so easily miss. Is God was like, I want you to do this. I want you to be this. This is the land that I have for you. This is the calling I have on your life. And they went, that's way too hard. We're going to go take this other place instead. So they ransack it, they kill everybody, and they take the town of Laish. But while they're there, they inherit all of their idols, all of their bad habits, and within a few years, they're completely unrecognizable as the people of God. So my question for you is, do you know what God has allocated you? Do you know what God has put on your life, what he has called you to do? Do you know why you are on this earth? Do you know why you exist? For me, it's been a long journey, but I know that I'm called to preach and teach the word of God. And it's easy to come up here and seem like that's really natural to me and really like it's easy and I don't have to think about it. But I've just finished my degree about a month and a bit ago. 9 years of study nearly killed me. And coming out of that space was initially relief and then honestly post-graduation depression is the easiest way that I can describe it, of like, what am I doing with my life? Why has this taken so long? Do I even want to be a pastor? I don't want to start another thing. This is, I put all my eggs in this basket. What do I want to do? And I'll be honest with you, in this season, I have been considering whether I still do this or not, because I haven't been sure. I've been like, God, do you really want me to do this? This is the time where you would shake this up. We're in the Promised Land series, right? Maybe my promised land is going and doing something else. Maybe it's not to do this. And there's a lot of Laishes out there that look very, very attractive. There is no such thing as a full-time youth pastor in this country unless you work for a mega church. I desperately want to work full-time. I get a full-time job doing pretty much anything other than this. I can make a lot more money if I became a high school teacher. I'd be really good at that. I have a gift of teaching. There's so many other allotments I could take, but I know that it's not the one for me. So my first point with that is, do you know what your allotment is? Because if you don't know what your allotment is, if you face a situation like me, you actually probably won't know if you should stand fast or not. I was at a conference just recently wrestling all of this out, and it was in a session that had nothing to do with what we're talking about, but God so clearly dropped into my spirit, and I just knew exactly what he meant when he said it. And I was like, God, I'm never not going to be a pastor, am I? I'm never not going to be a pastor, am I? And I actually cried and cried and cried. It was ugly crying. There was no tissues around. I had to sneak off and grab something to clean myself up. But it was this beautiful moment of like, no, I know what my allotment is. I won't compromise. I won't go to Laish. What does that look like for you? What is your thing? And what does it look like to not compromise for you? Point number 2, be like Caleb. Everyone say, be like Caleb. Are there any Calebs in the room today? That would be awesome if there was. We have a lot of bad examples in Dan in the room, but no good examples in Caleb. That's fine. If you can pull up the next verse for me. So this is Caleb speaking, and he's talking to Joshua here. And he says, now as you can see, the Lord has kept me alive and well, as he promised, for all these 45 years since Moses made this promise, even while Israel wandered in the wilderness. I'll pause there. He's been hanging on to the promise of God for 45 years. He's 85 years old now. He's not a spring chicken anymore. But he's been holding on and holding on and holding on. And he says, today I'm 85 years old. I am as strong now as I was when Moses sent me on that journey, and I can still travel and fight as well as I could then. Next slide, please. He says, so give me, or so assign to me, the hill country that the Lord promised me. You remember that as scouts we found the descendants of Anak living there in great walled towns. But if the Lord is with me, I will drive them out of the land, just as the Lord said. So Joshua blessed Caleb, son of Jephunneh, and gave or assigned Hebron to him as his portion of land. And the next verse it says, Hebron still belongs to the descendants of Caleb, meaning that he succeeded. They're still there. He still succeeded, so he succeeded, and they are still there. The biggest thing of Joshua's life, I think, to pay attention to is not just knowing your allotment, but boldly going after it. He takes initiative. I don't know about you, but I'm wrestling so much with God at the moment in this season of like, God, just give me a 10-list program. I don't care how hard it is, but I will do it. And I actually believe that I would. There's been lots of times in the past, I'm like, God, give me an instruction. I don't care how scary or crazy it is, and I will do it. And that was our journey of coming here. God was like, quit your internship and your job before I tell you the next step. And so I did. And then 2 months later, he then provided this, and we came and it was amazing. And I'm like, God, tell me the next thing. What do I have to do? I'm finished study. How am I going to fill my extra time? What are we doing? And God's like, you decide. I'm like, I will decide when you tell me. And I think for so many Christians, we're so afraid of getting it wrong that we don't make any decision at all. And I'm praying that as I've been speaking, certain things are coming to mind for you. So if all of a sudden you came to mind as we've been talking, you're like, I've always wanted to start that small business, start it. I've always wanted to do physiotherapy. Great, go sign up to whichever university suits you best. I've always wanted to blank. We don't need a sign from God in this season. It's actually just go do the thing. And I really hope that hits people, but just go do the thing. We're already in the land. So just go do the thing. Point number 3, there's still time for Zebulon and Naphtali. I'd be like, I've never heard those names in my life. I don't know any Zebulons or Naphtalis. Maybe you do. But there's still time for Zebulon and Naphtali. Let me paint the picture for you before we read the scripture. These guys were basically like Dan. They really, really stuffed up. In their allotment, in their portion, they did not do the right thing. And it devolved and devolved and devolved and devolved. And it doesn't show the fullness in Joshua. But its sequel, Judges, does speak to it. And they fall prey to all the idols in the land, all of the problems. But as part of that, there's a story, you would most likely know it, with Barak and with Deborah. that famous story of them. If you can pull up this next slide for me, it's one sentence, but so 2 sentences, very quick. It says, at Kadesh, Barak called together the tribes of Zebulon and Naphtali, and 10,000 warriors went up with him. Deborah also went up with him. It's just a passing line. But it's in a time of decline where enemies are running rampant in the land, and they're like, who will help us? Who will serve the Lord? Who will do the thing? Who will take the leap of faith? And Zebulon and Naphtali, despite all the sin, despite all the stuff ups, despite all the problems, they say, here I am, Lord, send me. They get one sentence about them. But a whole 10,000 of them went to war. There would have been blood and guts and gory, like it would have been intense. And it's this one passing line. But if you can fast forward to the next slide for me, this is in Matthew's gospel. This is in Jesus' time. And it says that when Jesus heard that John had been arrested, he left Judea and returned to Galilee. He went first to Nazareth. Then he left there to move to Capernaum beside the Sea of Galilee in the region of Zebulon and Naphtali. This fulfilled what God said through the prophet Isaiah. And he goes on to say, in the land of Zebulun and Naphtali, beside the sea, beyond the Jordan River, in the Galilee, where so many Gentiles live, the people who sat in darkness have seen a great light. And for those who lived in the land where death casts its shadow, a light has shined. Do you get what's going on here? As in, these guys, they stuffed it again, but there's still time for Zebulun. There's still time for Naphtali. And they come good in the end, and they fight when they're called to fight. And God's like, I see that, and I honor that, and I bless that. And he had one of his prophets, Isaiah, write about them. And then about 600-700 years later, Jesus chose to do all his miracles in the land of Zebulun and Naphtali. How crazy is that? He's chosen the very spot of failure, the very spot of where things had fallen apart, the very spot of sin, and he chose that to be the very, very region of redemption. And for me, I'll tell you something very quickly about my story. I shared this recently at a youth event, but I wasn't even going to share this. I just feel to share it with you now. I've done a lot of study. Like I shared before, I've just finished my degree. I've done 9 years of study and a few different discipleship courses, traveled all around the country, even different parts of the world. But in that journey, somewhere along the way, I was like, I think I'm going to be a pastor. I think that's what God would have for me. And as part of that, in that journey, I was in a discipleship course. And as part of that discipleship course is where I went on a placement trip and I met my now wife. And she's awesome. And we made the cutest baby in the world. And it's 98% her genes, about 2% mine. And it's awesome, and it's turned out really, really great. But when we met, we were in a church that had a very, very strict no dating policy. So time to focus on God. They didn't even like the word dating. They were all about courtship. That's another story. But as part of this story, I was like, man, I've met this girl, and I think she might be the one for me. I'm in Melbourne at the time. She's in Canberra. I was like, I'll just hit her up in the DMs. If you don't know what that is, we'll chat later. But hit her up in the DMs. We'll have a chat. And I'm like, I think this girl might be the one for me. But I know I can't date her at this point. So I'm trying to keep the connection up. I'm like, oh, there's still a bit of time in the course. How am I going to make this work? And during that time, there was a few mission trips I had back in Canberra, so in like a professional capacity, you could see her again. And during the time that we were catching up, we had sex multiple times. In the middle of Bible college, trying to become a pastor. I really stuffed up in this season. I was just like Zebulon and just like Naphtali. And I came clean. They really ripped me off. I lost about $2,500. The discipleship school tricked me, and I already paid the money. And they kicked me out and took my $2,500. All my friends there turned on me. People just called me up and abused me, tell me how bad of a Christian I was. And I was like, God, what do I do? Like, I think I am called to be a pastor. What do I do with that? I come home, I reset, feel very strongly to go to Bree's grandfather. So you think of it from his perspective. I've just been messing around with his granddaughter, but he's a pastor. Changed my life getting to journey with him. He literally paid for my flights. We flew out to Adelaide and did mission work together. And I've gone and done this behind his back. And I felt from God to ask him for an internship. And I know what God's voice sounds like. And I knew it was from him. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And so I've packed up all of my things and I'm on the way to Melbourne to go get my stuff. I don't have anything. I'm just making a detour to Canberra to see him on the way. And we catch up. And for context, he's the head of an entire network. It's like a denomination. He's in charge of over 300 pastors. And on that core leadership team is the senior pastor of the church that just kicked me out. So he knows this guy very, very well, doesn't really know me. And we're chatting and we're catching up, and he says to me, Matt, he's like, it's not over. He's like, all you have to do is two things. Find a place where you think you belong. He didn't use this language, but he was essentially like, find your promised land. Like, find the place you think God's calling you to be. And in that place, find someone that you look up to and you want to be mentored by, and come alongside them and be discipled by them. And I was like, Brian, I don't know what to say to you, but the only person who fulfills that criteria is you. And he goes, oh, all right, then come move here and do a 2-year internship with me. And I never even had to ask. I never even had to ask. And the person that kicked me out, I'm now working for his boss. I'm now working for his boss. He'd never had an entire internship ever, like no interns in the 50 years of ministry. And me, the sexual sin addict, humbled myself, came clean, elevates me above the very person that treated me very poorly and has elevated me above him. Where am I going with this? It is not over for you. It is not over for you. I know there are Zebulons and Naphtalis in this room where you've done the thing that God couldn't possibly forgive you for, and that your calling is seemingly sacrificed because of that. That is garbage. That is rubbish. If he can do that for me, I'm sure as hell he can do that for you. And we mentioned it before, but we're going to say it again, and I'm filled with so much passion right now. If you would like to get baptized, if this is your way of actioning this point, maybe you did not come here for that reason. Maybe you came here because that's just what you do, right? I just come to church. But if you would like to get baptized and you don't even know why, now would be the time to go see Anne, the lovely lady in purple at the back. And if no one wants to do it, that's fine. I just was being obedient to God and have preached what I felt to preach. But for you, if you're like, I'm stuck in this, whatever that this is, there is supernatural power in baptism. It's cutting away of your sinful nature. It's cutting away of the things that used to hold you back. And if you haven't been baptized, and if you're like, I'm really struggling with some form of hidden sin, this is your great opportunity for God to come in and fix that for you. Will you be perfect for the rest of your life? Probably not. I'm definitely not perfect for the rest of my life. Just ask my wife. She will tell you. But if you would like to do that, now would be the time.